This is Brick. This is a Nice Guys Patreon exclusive.
Welcome to another Ice Guys team season preview video. 32 teams in 32 days rolls along. And in this video, as you can tell, with Jimmy Murphy, our great friend joining us, we're talking Boston Bruins. And boy, is the outlook ever ominous, I guess you could say, for this Boston Bruins team entering the season. But Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, Jimmy Murphy with you. Let's just ask Jimmy. How are you doing, Jimmy? It's been a while since we've seen you. How are you? Things good?
I'm great, guys. Things have been good. It's been an interesting summer. I haven't really taken much of a break, a couple days here and there, but I just been nonstop writing for RG. But it's good. That means money, and that's what we got to do. So people think hockey world stops after the Stanley Cup final, but for me, I feel like sometimes the summer's busier than the regular season. To be honest, I know not for you guys because you're breaking down games every single day, but in terms of what people want to read, and it's all about trade rumors and free agent stuff. So the summer becomes pretty busy up until probably like the last few weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. There's never any full rest, from the off season. You get a little break, obviously, from doing the day-to-day stuff, but definitely there's always things to keep an eye on and talk about. And in this video, we're talking about the Boston Bruins and almost an unrecognizable team at the end of last season, with everybody that departed, obviously, all the trades that were made at the deadline, with, of course, the captain, Brad Marchand, being the biggest of all, shipped out to the Florida Panthers. It's just kind of stunning after, a decade plus of consistent, winning and being in the playoffs. Here's a season where the Boston Bruins are selling off major pieces at the deadline and ending the regular season at the dead last, in the basement in the Atlantic Division last season. Almost hard to believe if you didn't see it for yourself, but you see it last year, 76 points, even behind Buffalo in that Atlantic Division last season. So it certainly a team that fell, with the rebuild in motion after the deadline. You could tell it was going to be difficult for them, and it proved to be that way. You look at this team heading into this upcoming season, and the forward group certainly is littered with question marks. Right now, I'm looking at Elias Lindholm potentially being the top center. It's either him or Zacha, most likely. But when you look at that, how's that going to go over? David Pastrnak obviously is going to have to be Superman, I think, for this team offensively this year, for this Boston Bruins group. There's no question. And we're going to have a lot of Don Sweeney criticism, and I'm sure Jimmy will join us in that here on this video with some of the shit he's done. But at the same point in time, the one thing I will say in a positive is getting Morgan Geekie re-signed, because Morgan Geekie's been a very nice piece here for this Boston Bruins team. Had a nice couple of seasons for them. And, they're going to hope his offense carries through again this season, because boy, oh boy, they're going to need it with a lot of the question marks. Casey Middlestat, what are you going to get from him now? A guy that's obviously been with Buffalo, Colorado, now finds himself here with the Boston Bruins. Is Victor Arvidsson going to stay healthy? Of course, he's here now. And like I said, production waned in Edmonton. Health now, as he gets a little bit older, has always been an issue with him. Matt Poitras is someone that showed little flashes, more so a couple years ago. Is he going to be able to show growth and continued development? And that's going to be the question for this Bruins team. And, you got Corrali back in the fold. Tanner Jeannot's contract is an absolute abomination. I'm sure we'll mention that a little bit. Unbelievable, the term and the money that he was able to get from Don Sweeney in the offseason, signing with the Bruins. Mikey Eyssimont, John Beecher kind of rounding out this forward group. It's very thin. It's very thin. There's no question. The blue line, when you look at it for this Bruins team, Hampus Lindholm, very important. He stays healthy. Charlie McAvoy also battled that last year a little bit. They're fine there as your top two. But again, when you go beyond that, oh boy, Zadorov didn't have a great year last year at all, kind of being kind saying that. Henry Jokiharju, what are you going to get from him now? Former Buffalo Sabre. Mason Lowry, and Andrew Peak rounding out this blue line. Jordan Harris is someone that, when he was with Montreal, I like that kid a little bit. So it's nice that they've got him for a little bit of depth here at Boston. But what happens if McAvoy doesn't have a full season of health? What happens if Hampus Lindholm doesn't have a full season of health? Well, then this blue line is really in a world of hurt. There's no denying that whatsoever. And remember, because of years and years of contending and battling for Stanley Cups, it's not a full cupboard when it comes to prospects here for the Boston Bruins. So it's not like you can suffer multiple cluster injuries at one position and just plug someone in and off you go without a significant drop off. So that's certainly a concern for Boston as well. When you look at the goaltending, Jeremy Swayman held out for the money, held out for the contract, came back, and then just was never the same goaltender last year for the Boston Bruins. They must, I repeat, must get a good, not just good, maybe great Jeremy Swayman this year if they are going to even make inroads, even in the slightest. Korpisalo remains the backup, Jonas Korpisalo. Of course, this is now the Marco Sturm era of the Boston Bruins' first year as head coach. People will say, well, could you have gotten someone else, or is he ready for this opportunity? Maybe they went on the cheap a little bit. I'm leaving the door open because some of the work he did at the American Hockey League level wasn't bad. But like I said, it'll be interesting to see because there were other names out there floated around for the Boston job. And they ended up going kind of off the grid a little bit, at least, even with his connection to the Bruins as a former player when they hired Marco Sturm. So like I said, I'm pessimistic. This is an under the point total or past situation for me when it comes to the Boston Bruins this year, especially when you factor in this Atlantic division. When you factor in Florida's great still. Tampa hasn't dropped off like we thought. They're still a good above average team. Toronto's still good. Montreal and Ottawa are surging and ascending teams right now in the Atlantic division. There's even a chance Buffalo could even be a little bit better. Where does that leave a team like the Boston Bruins? It leaves them in a tough spot in a division that is top to bottom going to be pretty damn tough this upcoming season. So hard not for at least me to be pessimistic here when it comes to the Boston Bruins this upcoming season. Alex, we'll go to you. Boston Bruins.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I was just looking at Hockey Reference and looking at the Bruins' just historical layout. Only from 1960 through 1967 was there a long gap of missed postseasons. This is a franchise that since the turn of the century, 1999-2000, hasn't missed the playoffs more than 2 consecutive years. So losing is certainly something that they're not familiar with in these parts. But it's just fascinating to see, like I said, how things went from seemingly the top of the regular season mountain a couple of years ago with having that fantastic record, that fantastic run, and then the collapse in that series. And now we're at this point where, you're looking at a team that finished in last place and seemingly looks to be built to finish in last place again. I don't see where a consistent winning style comes from with this lineup. Like you have, scattered talent, right? Like David Pasternak's still going to be David Pastrnak if he stays healthy. It's a decent top line. And we talk about top heavy teams all the time. Yeah, they can find ways to maybe, cash a few games here or there, get a couple of wins. But in the long, strand of things, especially when you look at, like you said, how tough this division is. When Boston was at the top of the mountain, they were beating up on Tampa Bay, beating up on Toronto, beating up on Florida. All 3 of those teams are vastly superior now. And trust me, they also are going to, circle Boston being a bad team, knowing that, hey, these guys used to get us all the time. We're going to get them back. I believe that really does happen when you have teams that stay at the top of the mountain for a long time and finally get knocked down. We kind of saw that with the Red Wings when they made their rebuild run. We even saw it with the Hawks. The teams will circle, hey, you used to be somebody and now you're not.
That's an excellent point. Division rivals say, you know what, you beat our asses for years. Now we're going to kick you when you're down.
Yeah.
And they revel in it. Right.
And so that's something I have. That's one of the first notes I made with the Bruins this year. I'm looking to fade them in division games. I'm looking to fade them, and I'm looking to bet overs because I could see the Torontos and Floridas taking it out on them every single time they hit the ice, and that's the way it goes when you've been a power for so long, and now you have to essentially, Jimmy, what are they calling it there? Are they calling it a rebuild yet, or are they calling it a retool?
They're not calling it anything. They actually Clem Neely, quote unquote, in the end of the year press conference back in April, because it was so early this year. He said, we're not looking to just make the playoffs. We're looking to make a deep run. So either they're completely full of it.
And he said that with a straight face?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or they're delusional.
Sure.
Or they're absolutely delusional. So I don't know what this team thinks like they really are, but everything you just said is all true. And the reality of the situation right now is the Atlantic Division. You mentioned some of the people at the top. What about the teams coming above them? I mean, you'd have to say now in terms of where Montreal finishes, they're going to finish ahead of the Bruins again. They've surpassed the Bruins. You got to think soon. We say this every year,
Detroit,
but you got to think sooner or later the Buffalo Sabres are going to make a little push. Will they make the playoffs? Maybe not. You got to think it can't keep being that way soon. And I'll be honest, I like some of the additions Buffalo made. I think it was tough that they had to trade Peterka, but I think they got a decent return back in terms of a team knowing that a guy had demanded a trade. I thought, for once, Kevin Adams did a pretty good job. So Buffalo's going to be better in my eyes. Where's Detroit going to be? I'm kind of worried about them. They're pretty weak up the middle still.
Yeah.
The goaltending could be really good if Gibson is healthy. But still, all I'm trying to say is all these teams that were below the Bruins, as you were just saying, there's even more passing them now. So one could argue they're in one of the toughest neighborhoods in pro hockey right now in terms of their division. So I don't get how they think they're positioned to make a deep playoff run. And if you look at any teams that have won the cup, and let's just say in the salary cap era, but I mean, it goes back for the test of time. Any teams that have won the cup have A, obviously solid goaltending, and B, they're strong up the middle. They're just deep. I mean, Florida Panthers, man, they're amazing up the middle. Look at the weapons they have and the type of versatility they have in terms of their centers. The Bruins don't have that anymore. And, you guys mentioned, you referenced that season where they broke the regular season record there and they had all these records and they blew it in the playoffs against Florida. I said at the time, and I stand by this, we all knew, and the Bruins for some reason just didn't want to accept what was coming and thought somehow they were going to be able to convince David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron to stay on another year. But the writing had been on the wall for a couple of years, and Don Sweeney and Cam Neely did nothing to address the center position. They did not draft deep up the center. They didn't acquire more centers. They did nothing to address the center position, and they just thought somehow they were going to be able to keep this up. And I think that was the time when you lost there. And okay, let's give them the grace period. Okay, you get to July, and I think it was like mid-July or late July when Bergeron and Krejci retired in 2023. Right then, they should have said, that's it. Our run is over. It is what it is. We had a great run. We'll still probably sell a lot of seats because Bruins fans, no offense to them, they're diehard, but they're suckers. They're going to fill the place anyways. They're going to get seats filled, and they're still going to make money. And they should have said, if we really want to contend within the next 3 to 4 years, let's start the rebuild now. Instead, they just thought they were.
They kicked the can, right? Kick the can down the road.
Down the road, and that's the perfect way to describe it. And then we get into all the mess that was last offseason. And you mentioned Jeremy Swayman there. The first mistake by Don Sweeney was trading Linus Ullmark before he had signed Jeremy Swayman, because right there, Swayman and his agent have the upper hand. They've got the leverage.
You lost your leverage.
Yeah.
Correct.
And not to mention that Jeremy Swayman's agent, Louis Gross, is notorious for doing long holdouts, for making his guys sit out camp. He's actually now authored the 2 longest. I guess some people say it's not a holdout, right? Because they're not technically on the roster, but you know what I mean? He's authored the 2 longest sit-outs, we'll say, of training camps. One was William Nylander. He's the longest under the salary cap era in Toronto in 2019. And now 2 was Jeremy Swayman. So, how did Don Sweeney, who had dealt with this guy before, he had dealt with him when Torrey Krug was up for a contract. That didn't work. They ended up letting Torrey Krug walk, and that got dragged out. So how did Don Sweeney not prepare himself for this? Why would he have traded Ullmark? Why did he think he was going to be able to go in there and just dictate everything that happened? And on top of that, you knew that Louis Gross and Jeremy Swayman were ticked off from the year before and what happened in arbitration. So they were out for blood. They were going to take him to the cleaners no matter what. And if it meant sitting out half the season, they didn't give a shit. And the Bruins botched that completely. And then it was just downhill from there. And I'll tell you this right now. The Bruins are still trying to preach that they have one of the best dressing rooms and the best culture going on there. That culture was already deteriorating when you lost Bergeron and Krejci, and then you lose some other vets as it went along. But when that Swayman thing happened, that divided the room. I can tell you as a fact right now, and I've written this and I've already reported, Brad Marchand was not happy with what went down with Jeremy Swayman, both with the team and with the player. He felt that it put them behind the 8 ball, and he was absolutely right. And I feel, based on what I wasn't in the locker room as much, so I'm not going to try and say I know everything that was going on, but I know people that were. I know people that work with the team, and from what I heard, that locker room became cliques, like 2 to 3 different cliques. They got split up, and they were not unified like they were all these years. And now they're trying to say that they can just continue that culture, and they've got that going on. I am happy, though, on that note. Hampus Lindholm was talking to somebody recently. I think it was on NHL.com or I think it was Elliot Freeman, actually, and Kyle Bukauskas on 32 Thoughts. And he said, we now have to reestablish the culture. He's the only one who's admitted that. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
For all those Bruins fans are saying, oh, our culture will carry us. That will get us through everything. Did it get you through last year? No, you had to blow it up, and you traded 2 of your key veterans in Brad Marchand and Charlie Coyle. You know, so like, don't try to tell. And Brandon Carlo.
I'm sure trading the captain helped the culture too. I'm sure it really,
so
really
helped. A break, and now they're not even going to have a captain. If you have a strong culture, you have a captain. You don't. You can't go into a season without a captain and say that we're a unified locker room, and we've got the same pillar of character that we've had in the past. They don't. So there's a lot of things that are up in the air with this team right now, and I just don't understand how anyone right now can paint them as a playoff contender, let alone Cam Neely trying to say they're a Stanley Cup contender. And what's disgusting to me, guys, and I don't care if they don't like me when I see them in the press box or I see them in practice coming up right now. What's disgusting to me is half the Boston media has bought into this narrative that the Bruins have fed them, because the Bruins basically ostracize you. If it's like a certain, presidential regime here in this country right now. If you don't kiss ass, you're not going to get the interviews you want. You're not going to get the scoops you want. And so now there's a bunch of Boston media that appreciate everyone's underrating the Bruins. They're really going to be good, and people are undervaluing them. What are they smoking? What are they smoking right now? So, yeah, I'm with you guys. This is going to be a long season. If you tell me that Elias Lindholm is a number 1 center on a Stanley Cup contender, you really don't know hockey. He's a 2 at best. At best.
Yeah.
But I think on a team like Florida or a team like Toronto, he's a 3. I really don't. And you look at just his trajectory, his decline on the ice in stats since he left Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary. It's been consistently going down, and there's a reason he's been on 3 teams in the last 5 years. I don't know what the Bruins are thinking right now, but it's not going to amount to a lot of wins.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with any of that. There's a reason they're minus 700, minus 700 at FanDuel to miss the playoffs.
Wow.
Boston Bruins. You got to risk 700 to win 100 on Boston to miss the playoffs. And that's where we're at. And I think this will be on my
what's the over under in the wins, guys?
Futures. It's point total, 76
points.
Under.
I'm going under.
Yeah. I'm going
to 76 last year, and I think they're worse this year.
Why do you want to try and make the playoffs right now with this team? Yeah. Even if you made it, you're out in 1 round. Like, you don't have a team built for playoff success. Yeah. And isn't there some generational superstar that's going to be available in next year's draft? Like, this is not the year. If you're a mediocre or below mediocre team, like
a certain kid that's playing at Penn State this fall.
Yeah, if you're in that mid range right now, where I think the Bruins are, they're like sort of like average to below average. Why do you not want to keep going downwards? Like, why do you want to try and knock on the door of the playoffs and just miss, and then you're screwed in the draft and you're drafting, in the teens? Go for it right now. Tank this thing. This is it. You have a chance to get Gavin McKenna. Like, go for it right now.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Plus 1,400 for worst regular season record right now.
I think that's worth a small fly.
Worth a stab.
Maybe. Yeah. I think the San Jose Sharks have something to say about that.
A Pasternak or Swayman injury, and that thing is live. That certainly goes to like plus 300. So at 14-1, I'll take a shot.
McAvoy injury,
No
that will happen too. Yeah. I think this guy's injury riddled, and then you factor in he's going to play in the Olympics. How's he going to be feeling after the Olympics down the stretch run?
That's right. We got to keep that into consideration. The key guys who will be gone for every team, considerably with the Olympics, and Swayman's part of that as well, right?
Yep. If you're not a deep team, right, and you've got a lot of guys going to the Olympics, unless you somehow miraculously rack up a bunch of points by the time they head to Italy, you're in trouble, man. Like, those players. We saw it with the 4 nations. How many players felt it? And I mean, look at Matthew Tkachuk right now. He's going to miss what? The first few months of the season? That's all from the Four Nations. So there's going to be problems for teams that have, 3 or more players that are going to the Olympics.
Yeah, I think there's definitely.
Sounds like we probably shouldn't have extra hockey in the middle of a regular season, but I digress.
Yeah, I think they're trying to. I don't love when they're trying to shoehorn this in. Like they've got to give. If you're going to put the NHLers in the Olympics in February, you've got to make it a sizable break to transition from NHL to the Olympic tournament and then back from the Olympic tournament to the NHL season.
And here's my idea.
Start the season in late September, which finally apparently they're starting to consider.
Here's what I say, guys. I don't care about what tradition is. Why not just put the hockey in the Summer Olympics? Don't tell me, the ice will be bad. Bullshit. You held the whole Stanley Cup playoff in a bubble.
Yeah.
In July and August and September.
And you had ice in Florida hold up reasonably okay in June.
Yeah, you had
during the Stanley Cup final the last few years.
Or how about Tampa Bay?
Yeah.
Right.
They had their ice hold up there for their second
Move
cup.
it to the summer, yeah.
Go into Summer Olympics.
But they equate ice hockey, because of course at the Olympics it's called ice hockey. You got to have it as part of the Winter Olympics because they think ice hockey and Summer Olympics together makes no sense.
And then the IIHF would probably have something to say about that with the World Championships too. Like, then what do you do with the World Championships? Do you move that to late summer? Do you put that in August or September?
Yeah.
So that
But I mean, basketball's a winner.
I'm personally not worried about the feelings of the IIHF World Hockey Championship, folks, because the best that's never best on best anyway.
Right.
Tournament. Yeah.
That's another thing too. I love the other narrative here too. Is Jeremy Swayman's definitely gonna have a bounce back year. Look at how well he did in the World Championships.
Yeah.
Really?
How about that big difference between the United States blue line and the Boston Bruins 25-26 blue line?
Yeah.
Coming up. Big
it's
difference.
Ridiculous. I mean, I don't know what's going on here. They've got people brainwashed that this team is somehow going to compete. And look, if we're sitting here in June and the Bruins are still playing, I'll admit I was wrong. I have no problem doing that. But I just don't see a playoff team right now in the Boston Bruins.
I can't put their roster up against anybody right now in the Atlantic and say it's better for sure. 100%.
How about the defense? I know you made a good point there. They're great. They got McAvoy and Lindholm.
McAvoy and Lindholm, if they stay healthy, that's going to help a lot.
But what are you going to do? You're going to be top heavy there too. You're going to make them the top pairing. Then what do you have for the next two pairings?
That's literally what they have. It's a top heavy first line, top heavy first D pair, and you got one goalie.
Like you're telling me Zadorov is a second pairing D man?
No.
Him and Mason Lowry, I don't know I don't have the stats in front of me, but they had to be up there in turnovers last year. And how about all the dumb penalties that Zadorov takes?
Yes, too many. Just selfish, undisciplined. Yep. Put his team behind the 8 ball.
He's good for one a night.
Yep.
Mason Lowry should just be a forward. I mean, the kid cannot play defense, and I know he's young, but he's got a lot.
He led him in points, but you're right about the issues at times with the giveaways. Yep. Yeah, he had a few. Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know why they're trying to say they have a deep defense. They don't.
Yeah.
You need somebody on that right side to replace Carlo. Yeah. Right? Like right now, I would put it. I mean, I'm looking at their D right now.
I don't like plus minus is sometimes overrated, but it does stand out that Mason Lowry last year minus 43.
Yeah. I think once you're past the minus 30.
Yeah.
Then I don't think it's so overrated anymore.
Yeah,
no. Yeah. Especially when you're on the blue line, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's the concern. And to Alex's point, he says overs because look, a lot of teams are going to probably score on Boston if Swayman doesn't play a lot better than he did. That jury's still out on that. But I'm going to ask Jimmy because this is Marco Sturm question here. I get the sense, knowing his background as a player, this is going to be with the concerns offensively outside of Pasternak. Once you get past Pasternak, Geeky, and who the hell's going to score consistently? I could see them really doing this. Clog up the neutral zone, really, really try to help out Swayman, be tight, be strong defensively,
exactly
really, really, really play this,
look
stay
at the
back.
Type of forwards they signed.
Yeah.
You mentioned, like Terrence Janot. Look at the forwards they signed. They're all just defensive forwards. Yeah. And some of them are really good at doing that, but you've got a lot of third and fourth line grinders on this team right now.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. That's the one thing I didn't understand. You said about the Marco Sturm hire, it's kind of questionable if they consider themselves a contender. I'm with you. Marco Sturm is more built for a rebuild team, right? Yeah. So it makes me wonder, are they full of it when they're trying to tell the fan base and the media that they're not in a rebuild and they hope to contend? Because the coach hired me tells them that they think they're in a rebuild. And I've got nothing wrong with that. My thing is just come out and tell the truth. You remember when Jeff Gorton and the Rangers wrote the letter to their fans?
Yep.
2021 or something? Or
Yep.
No, it was 2018.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was so refreshing to just see a team say, this is where we are. We admit it. We're asking,
even if it's a negative, light on where we're at least you're being honest, you're being transparent, and the fans do appreciate that. The real fans will appreciate that, I think.
Exactly. And here's the prime example of that. The Montreal Canadiens did the same thing when Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes came in. They said, "This is it. We're in a rebuild. We're not going to rush it. We're going to take our time." And even still, they're not rushing it too much. Yeah, they made some really bold moves and it improved it some. But like they're handling it right. They've kept it quiet. They admitted who they were. They admitted what they were. And I think it gave a great hockey fan base. Obviously, Montreal, one of, if not the best in the league in the world. And I think the Bruins fans are good hockey fans. I think if you came to the Bruins fans last June and you said, "That's it, we're blowing it up."
No.
I think a lot of smart fans, and I think there's plenty still left here, would have been like, "Great, let's get Gavin McKenna and let's do this thing right." But when you say you're contending and you bring in a guy like Marco Sturm,
and you give him a roster like you say that, and you give him a roster like this too.
It completely contradicts itself.
Yeah, no wonder.
And unfortunately, what's going to happen, right, is they're gonna stink, like we said, and he will become now since 2023. So you've had Cassidy, Montgomery. He will become the third coach fired by the Bruins since 2023. I'll say maybe not this year, probably after the following season, 26-27.
Right. Yeah.
And they'll just keep scapegoating the coach, not admit that they're in a rebuild, and they'll half-ass the rebuild, and they'll stay in the middle. And that's the problem here. And I grew up with this. This is the way the Bruins were when we were growing up. They just stayed average, and they were just good enough to keep the seats filled and just bad enough not to make a run.
Yeah, and that's going to be, like I said, it's going to be very, very interesting what happens here with this Bruins team. Look, they're not at the point where like it was with Mike Milbury with the Islanders in the late 90s and 2000s, where I think he went through 7 or 8 coaches in 9 years. It was ridiculous. I mean, the coach he went through when he was general manager of the New York Islanders with Charles Wong, the owner, back in the day. Like they had a new coach every 2 years. You know, Laviolette was taking them to the playoffs, and they still fired him when he was there with the New York Islanders. So, like I said, we're not there yet with Don Sweeney with Boston, but hey, he's starting to go through coaches like he's changing his clothes every day, that kind of thing right now. And that's not the sign of a stable organization that's moving in the right direction when you start to see that for sure. Jimmy, is there anything you want to add before we wrap it up on the Boston Bruins?
No, that's it. Yep.
Yep. The outlook is not positive. I like under 76.5 points. Again, we'll see. I don't know about the worst record, but at the price you're getting, it's probably worth a shot.
It's worth a flyer for me. Yeah.
It is, I think, worth a small shot. But that under point total does seem like a pretty good way to go. Under 76.5. They got 76 last year, and I expect them to be worse than that this year. And 76, like let's say they match 76 points last year, it's still going to go under the 76.5 that's out there. So yeah, I like that point total for sure. Jimmy, it's been great to catch up. Good to see you. Yeah. Thanks for joining us on this Boston Bruins
pleasure, guys.
Team preview. Absolutely. For Alex B. Smith and Jimmy Murphy, I'm Ian Cameron. This has been your Boston Bruins season preview video as 32 teams in 32 days rolls along courtesy of the Ice Guys.